What? Billy Carson says God is Satan? Let's look into this. I'm Matt with Casper's crew, and if you're anything like me, you've been seeing Billy Carson everywhere. And I wanted to get into it and see some of the things he has to say. Recently, I found a clip from Fragrant Clips about some of the things he has to say. And I have to say, they're pretty shocking. So let's get into it.
What do we do when we start mixing and matching? Like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
Was that bad or is that good?
Well, no.
What would the God say about that?
In the Garden of Eden, it was actually Edin, all right? And Enlil, he was known as Yahweh. He was the Lord.
Wait. Enlil is Yahweh. No, absolutely not. So Enlil is the Sumerian king of the earth, the god king of the earth. And his father, Anu, you might know him as the offspring of Anu as the Anunnaki, is the supreme god of the heavens. So Anu is the supreme god of the heavens. Enlil is the king of the earth. And both of those would not be Yahweh, which is the name given to God in the Bible. And we know this, right? So when you look at the Bible in of itself, and you look at the patriarch who created Judaism, Christianity, Islam, his name is Abraham. And Abraham came from a city called Ur-Kasdim, which was later translated to Ur the Chaldeans. And Ur, according to most, if not all, biblical scholars, is the ancient city of Ur in Sumeria. Now, there's a number of people who say that he was a Chaldean, which is also in Iraq, near where Ur was. So in between the Tigris and Euphrates River in Iraq. And we know that Abraham is the patriarch of a new religion. Now, we know who Abraham's father was. Abraham's father was named Terah. And Terah was an idol maker. And Terah would make idols to the Sumerian gods. And he would sell them to the people who wanted to worship at the temples. Had a massive temple, and people would buy offerings and would buy idols to worship the gods. And we know that Abraham rejected the gods of his father. And the gods of his father would be the Sumerian gods. And we know that he is from the city of Ur, which is Sumerian, which in Iraq. And we know that the Sumerian gods are, as I said earlier, Anu, Enlil, and the Anunnaki, the 12 great gods that make up the Sumerian pantheon. So what we have is we've got the gods of Ur, we've got the gods of his father, Terah, and we've got Abraham in the Bible rejecting both of them. And he expressly rejects them. He's saying, I reject the gods of my father, the gods of my city, basically, and I choose to worship the God who created all things. Well, it can't be Enlil, because if he's rejecting the gods of his father, that would literally be Enlil, the king of the earth. It would also be Anu, the king of the heavens. And then there's also the problem that both Anu and Enlil didn't create anything. Enki is one that claims to have created the black-headed people, which would be people, very specifically Sumerian people. And they never created the earth. That is the body Tiamat in the Enuma Elish. So they didn't create anything. So it doesn't really make sense to say that God, which was Yahweh, is Enlil when the two of them don't even compare. Especially when we have Abraham expressly rejecting the Sumerian gods, and Enlil being a Sumerian god, he rejected them.
Is that good?
Well, no.
What would the God say about that?
In the Garden of Eden, it was actually Edin, all right? And Enlil, he was known as Yahweh. He was the Lord, he was known as Satan, the Lord of Eden. Satan, the Lord of Eden. And Eden was an outside laboratory.
Hold on. No. There's not a single piece of text that I am aware of that says this. We know what Satan means? Satan means adversary. It most certainly doesn't say the Lord of Eden. And there are many Satans in the Bible. There are many adversaries in the Bible. And we know that there are even several human Satans in the Bible. But there is only one, the Satan, the Satan. And we know who that is. In the rabbinical text, the Satan is a cherubim, an angel called Samael. And Samael is who we would associate as Lucifer in Christianity. Samael is the Satan that we know about. And he wasn't even the one that tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden, according to the rabbinical text and according to the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch is an ancient Jewish text. It was found in Dead Sea Scrolls, among other places, and it is older than the Bible. And the Dead Sea Scrolls basically tells the story of Adam and Eve, their descendants, and the giants, which roamed the earth at that time that you can read about in Genesis. And we know who tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden. It was an angel called Gaadriel. And Gaadriel was the serpent who tempted Eve to eat of the forbidden fruit and caused the whole mess in Eden. And we also know that Gaadriel didn't do it on his own. He was tricked and tempted to do this by the Satan, Samael. So we know who the Satan is. We know who the Satans are. It's definitely not Enlil. It's definitely not Yahweh, even though Enlil could be a Satan being an adversary of the Jewish people. But Yahweh is most certainly not the Satan. And what I really want to know is, where does it say that Yahweh, who I guess is Enlil, created a laboratory in Eden? Like where? Where does it say it? Enlil didn't even make people. That was the Sumerian god Enki. So it doesn't make any sense. All right, let's go back to it.
This was a mating ground. So they would start. So what happened first was they began with genetically modified people that were almost like clones.
I would love to know where this is found because it sounds like great science fiction. Maybe a great Netflix series, but I don't know where he's getting this from. I want to read it because it sounds interesting. If you guys know where he's getting this from, please tell me in the comments because I want to read it because it sounds like some great stories.
Information on the cloning technique is at the Temple of Karnak in Africa, in Egypt, where I take people. And also there's more evidence or talk about
The Temple of Karnak. I don't really know where he's getting this.
the Temple of Dendera. And there's one more temple that has the birthing center. I think it's the Temple of Isis. And so
Temple of Isis. I'm going to go out there and assume that he has a book and he can explain it, but I've never read it.
they were making these people, but they couldn't make them fast enough. And these people couldn't have sex and reproduce on their own.
So
Then they got very frustrated. So ISIS says, okay, I have an idea. I'm going to
So now we've got another addition to this pantheon of gods. So we've got the Egyptian god Isis, we've got the Sumerian god Enlil, and the Judeo god Yahweh, all working together. Okay.
take the egg out of one of the beings and put it in my womb and take it to term. So it says in the text that they literally mixed their genetics with this egg, put it in her womb. So that's now making what we call a zygote in modern.
This is the problem here. What text? And where does it say this? I have read the Enuma Elish. I've read the Sumerian tablets, right? You can read them in English. That's how I did it. And you can listen to people who are far smarter than me, like Dr. Michael Heiser, and who can actually, look at these texts and decipher them. It doesn't say that. What we know is that Enki in the Sumerian text, Enki is also in the Enuma Elish, which is the Babylonian creation story, with Marduk being essentially taking the place of Enlil, because Marduk and Enlil are essentially one and the same, different gods, right? But what it is that when the Babylonians conquered the Sumerians, which at that time were the Akkadians, they couldn't have Enlil be the supreme god. They had to have their own local god become the supreme god. That's Marduk. And in the Enuma Elish, like, it's still Enki, right? So there's, in both cases, Enki creates mankind, but not all of mankind. He only creates the black-headed people, and many people think that is the black-haired people. And they only create it with the blood of the gods and dirt. Nothing about, whatever the heck he's talking about. And even in Christianity and Judaism with Genesis, it doesn't say that either, right? God created Adam and Eve, right? There is some play about the pre-Adamites and all that stuff, which we don't need to get into, but it doesn't say any of this. So I don't know why Enlil is Yahweh. Both books, the Sumerian creation story, Genesis, aren't matching up with what he's saying.
Technology terms, right? In vitro fertilization, puts it in her womb, takes it to term for 10 months, and then gives birth to the Adamu, which means first man. And there's a cylinder scroll in the British Museum where she's holding up the baby, says, "My hands have made it," the first man, Adamu. So that's where we get the first genetically perfected Homo sapien.
I don't know, but I don't think it's as he says it is. I think he's conflating an ancient story with his own personal beliefs here.
So before that, they were
Homo something, but they weren't like us. They couldn't reproduce. Like if you take a tiger and a lion and mate them, it'll have a ligand, but the ligand.
The first command of God, the very first command of God to mankind in Genesis 1, is that man and woman are to procreate and be fruitful. So this goes against Genesis, right? Where it goes against the very first command of God, where mankind is supposed to multiply across the earth. So this doesn't work with Genesis 1, and frankly, I don't think it works with Genesis 2 either, where you got Adam and Eve there. And then we can get into the pre-Adamites or the dual creation of man and woman in Genesis 1, but that's for a video for another time.
Right.
So that's the situation. That's what we had going on.
This is so fun. This is so much fun. It's so much more fun to listen to you and just believe everything. Yeah, I'm telling you, it is. I know there's people that listen right now like, "Oh, this is bullshit." Just get away from that and just enjoy today. Just enjoy.
I want them to research what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They can rewind and write this stuff down or type it in their phone. And start learning.
Yeah.
I want people to research what I say. Don't believe what I say. Research what I say.
Yeah.
So what happens is, and we take people to these cloning
Please do.
centers when we take them to Africa on tour. Our tour we take every single year. Next one is coming up in October. And so the point I'm trying to make is, so we have the cloning center. The clones couldn't reproduce enough. And a lot of work was going into making these people. So they came up with Adam. This starts the generations of ISIS, the Genesis.
Ooh.
I don't think I need to tell you how that's an issue. He's taking the English words, generation and ISIS, and combining the English words to create Genesis. This is what I want you to do right now. I want you to go and type in, what does Genesis sound like in Hebrew? Yeah, it is not Genesis. This is a small section of the Fragrant Clips YouTube video that I will link in the description. And I want to hear what your guys' opinion. Is Billy correct? Am I correct? Let's have a discussion in the comment section. And for more like this, anything that's supernatural, anything that's historical, anything at all that you guys want to talk about, like and subscribe and we'll have a discussion. I'm Matt, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you.